I've got to say, I am really fucking excited about this. There are undoubtedly way too many podcasts in the world, so we waited a while to launch one at Hunterbrook. We waited until we had the right idea, a podcast that would actually be worth your time. Welcome to The Hunt, where Hunterbrook's team of investigative reporters and intelligence analysts explain the biggest scams from the golden age of grift and graft to people who know scams very well. Whether they themselves have been the victim of a scam, an unwitting accomplice to one, or have just been called a scammer, fairly or unfairly. People like our first guest, Caroline Calloway, one of our rotating co-hosts and author of the book Scammer, famously called a masterpiece by the Washington Post. For those of you who don't know what Hunterbrook is, or are only tuning into this podcast because you heard me on Pablo Torre this week, we are a new kind of media company, where we don't do ads or paywalls, and you won't hear any of those on this podcast. Instead, we monetize the truth. Figuring out what's happening in the world and how it's different from what people in power say is happening. The idea is that journalism has created a ton of value for everyone except the organizations that produce it, for the funds that trade trillions of dollars based on news articles, for the plaintiffs' lawyers who turn investigative reporting into cases worth tens of billions. Meanwhile, investigative reporting is going extinct. Hunterbrook was founded to change this, and it's a radical idea. In addition to our newsroom, Hunterbrook Media, which publishes truth to power, investigative reporting, and breaking news, we also have a couple other affiliates. Hunterbrook Capital, an investment fund that can trade based on the articles that we report, and Hunterbrook Law, which can turn our investigative reporting into the kind of litigation that brings restitution to the people who have been harmed. The best part of this model? Everything we do incentivizes the truth. It's the only way we make money. Not how many clicks we get, how many subscribers we can bring in, but whether our reporting is deemed correct by two different arbiters, the courts and the markets. Since we launched this company over a year ago, our stories have generated incredible accountability. Companies we've exposed have been investigated by the federal government, charged by state attorneys general, sued for RICO violations and deceptive practices. Stocks have collapsed when lies have been exposed. Branding has changed. The radical experiment that is Hunterbrook is somehow working. But the thing is, while accountability is our North Star, we also want people to find out about these stories. That's why we sent reporting on the Trump administration to ProPublica, a story they broke last week that ended up reaching millions of people. That's why we published this big investigation with Pablo Torre into the CCP and Harvard and some of the best athletes in the world. And it's why we're launching this podcast. Because every day we find unbelievable stories, the kind of stories that make you interesting to talk to at parties. And we now want you to know about them too. So subscribe to our podcast, The Hunt. Tell your friends about it, but not too many of them, because you have to be the most interesting person you know. So Caroline knows nothing about the scam we're about to explain today. I want to start with a very high-level question.
Yeah.
What is your understanding of what diabetes is?
Too much no, you don't have enough sugar. And so you got to have you got to eat some fruit and take a shot so you don't die.
There's more incorrect answers you could have given.
And sometimes you're obese.
Occasionally, there's an overlap.
Occasionally you're obese, and that's why you have diabetes.
That's type 2 diabetes, where you get it sort of later in life, generally.
And type 1 diabetes is where you don't have enough fat. You're not eating enough sugar.
Not
so
correct.
You take a shot.
No. Okay. So we're starting with basically no awareness from Caroline. But diabetes is obviously
What is diabetes? I
an
genuinely
illness
need
that
to know.
impacts millions and millions of people all around the country.
Very serious.
Caroline, you might relate to diabetes because when people are on diabetes, there's a lot of things they have to do to manage their diabetes. Do you have a sense of what they've got to get up to?
I told you they have to eat fruit and take the shot. Did I stutter?
Okay, so do you know what's in the shot?
The fruit that's in the sugar. The sugar that's in the fruit.
Have you heard of insulin?
Yeah, that's sugar.
We're going to have on a healthcare reporter and specialist shortly, the great Laura Wadsten from our team, who will explain in much more detail what exactly people with diabetes need. But when do they give themselves a shot, and when do they decide to eat fruit? Can you explain to me how they go about managing that?
Sometimes their blood sugar level drops. Blood sugar. It drops, and then they have to be injected immediately, or else they die.
you're definitely like really on track here. So
And if you don't have the shot, you can give them fruit.
my question for you is, how do they know what their blood sugar is?
Because they feel like they're about to die.
You think they're just vibes managing their diabetes?
It's vibes. They just like, if I had diabetes, type 1, I would just know when I needed. I'd be like, I feel like
What's
I'm
the
dying.
equivalent for you? Like, what's the thing you do day to day where you're like, you know what?
Caffeine.
Like, I need
Easily.
something.
Easily caffeine.
Okay, so you think if you were a diabetic, you would basically take insulin the same way nowadays you're like, oh, I could probably use some coffee or tea.
In fact, I'd prefer to take the caffeine to the vein. So like,
Okay, totally.
I wish I was
So
doing
you're
more of
picturing
that.
like a shot. So you're thinking basically what's
Isn't
happening
insulin a shot?
is your vibes are off, and
I'm
then you
just
give yourself a
caffeine.
shot.
Yeah.
Okay,
As
so-
a reformed Adderall addict, that would be my dream. Just straight caffeine.
Not straight Adderall.
Well, ideally, but you know,
Harder to get,
Did
for
ruin
sure.
my life. Like, wasn't a great friend.
Intravenous Adderall,
Yeah.
probably not the best idea for Caroline.
And like, but I feel like we might be onto something. Let's put a pin in that and come back.
For
to
sure,
it.
we can come back
Isn't that
to
just
you
meth?
injecting Adderall. It's definitely on the meth spectrum. It's definitely meth adjacent, I would say, for sure.
With me, it's like all roads lead to meth.
Yes.
So diabetes.
The moral arc of the universe is long, but it leads towards Caroline doing meth. Yes. But okay, so people on diabetes, the big thing is they got to figure out what their blood sugar is.
How do they know?
And then they got to take insulin. Okay, so you know like how people with diabetes like prick themselves? Is that like something you're familiar
oh, yeah,
with?
there's 2 shots. There's the shots to get the insulin, but there's also
There's
a
2 shots.
There's a shot to check.
Caroline with her hottest JFK assassination conspiracy theory. There's a second shooter. No, there's not two. There's not 2 shots. That's not how it works.
Wait, how do
But
they check
basically,
then?
you do a finger prick, historically and
That's
canonically.
a shot.
It's a little
They
finger
prick and then collect the
It's
blood.
more like an Elizabeth
They-
Holmes type thing.
They
It's a little
grab
bit
the
of
blood into something.
Correct.
My dear friend.
And that
our
blood-
faces have been put together so many times in
Yes.
like graphics.
Yes. Okay. So that
Love her.
Bestie. Wait, who are you talking about? Oh, Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
'Cause our
such a good
faces are
point.
always
yes.
put together,
Oh my God,
even
Elizabeth Holmes, you would be such a good guest for this podcast. It's crazy. Let me know.
Lizzie walked so I could.
That podcast is like
podcast
is
right
like
now.
Serial meets this podcast. Elizabeth Holmes tells me why she's innocent.
That's what we're doing right
That's
now.
what we're doing right now, functionally. Okay, so the thing is, people with diabetes prick their fingers and they find out
They collect the blood.
what their blood sugar
What do
is.
they collect it in?
Honestly, we're gonna have to come back to you with Laura on that. But they
Okay.
basically collect a little bit of blood and it tells them what their blood sugar is, and then they figure out how much insulin to get. That's how it always worked historically.
Okay.
And then there was this incredible invention. Have you ever heard of a continuous glucose monitor?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Like rings a bell.
Continuous glucose
Okay, so a
monitor.
continuous glucose monitor is something you put on your arm. It's a patch.
Oh yes, Lila Moss wears one. She wore one to the Met Gala.
I obviously have no idea who
That
Lila
little
Moss
patch.
is.
Oh God, someone put a photo up right here. Like she wore a patch to the Met Gala.
Can you
and it was
explain who
great.
Lila Moss is to me?
Kate Moss's daughter.
And can you explain a little bit more about Kate Moss?
You're joking.
I know
Come
that Kate Moss
on.
is referenced in the Jimothy Lacoste song where he says Kate Moss, but I don't actually really know
Or-
her cultural
What
significance.
is it? You can be my black Kate Moss tonight.
That's actually different, but I guess that Kate Moss is quite prolific
She was one of the like
in
most iconic
lyrics.
supermodels during the heyday of like
got it, totally.
models.
Like a
She
Cindy
has that-
Crawford character.
Yes, she's blonde, wide set eyes. She looks like the most beautiful alien in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great description. Okay, so a continuous glucose monitor, you just wear it and it tells you what your glucose is.
Yes.
And it's really, really cool. And it can connect automatically to your smartphone and it can tell you like, here's what your blood glucose is at like any given time. So there's like a company, I'm curious if you've heard of, have you ever heard of a company called Dexcom?
No.
Okay, so they like make these continuous glucose monitors. Their devices are called like the G5 and the G6, and then their new one, the
Like
G7.
iPhones?
And what it does is
They just
they
keep numbering
exactly,
them?
yeah, it is like iPhones, and they need to release new ones. But they give you these continuous glucose monitors, and they tell you what your blood glucose is at any given time.
So you can just see it's connected to your arm.
Exactly.
Because you would eat the fruit before it got.
Again, I think
bad.
fruit's being like way over-indexed in this episode. We'll check again with the great Laura Wadsten, who's going to
Fruit was,
come.
like a huge part of having diabetes.
Fruit, I think.
I felt like orange slices was like essential to like.
Caroline's
survive.
having Proustian throwback to playing soccer as a little kid, thinking that that's how you solve diabetes.
No, I really really thought that was how.
Yes,
they
when you're a little kid
managed.
playing soccer and you're dehydrated, oranges can be helpful. Diabetes is a serious
for the
condition.
Diabetics on the team.
It is not for the diabetics on the team.
I thought like what they did. I just thought that's why we had them.
And that's totally understandable. But what happens is they connect to your insulin pump. People with diabetes have something called an insulin pump.
Is it in
and
that
it's not
thing
a
as well?
shot. No, it's a separate device that gives you insulin when you need it.
Okay.
Okay, so the continuous glucose monitor
Is the arm thing.
is on the arm.
That Lila wore to the Met Gala.
And that thing will tell you, okay, your glucose is high or low. And depending on that, it'll give
Then
you a little bit of insulin
Oh, it will do it.
to normalize it. It will connect to your insulin pump. They're
the
all
insulin
connected.
pump is on a different part of the body.
It is on a different part of the
It's
body.
the thigh. What
I
is
really
it?
am quite embarrassed that I can't tell you, but we should be with Laura within 4 minutes.
Amazing.
And she's going to have all the answers to these questions. I also need the story explained to me. But the fundamentals are glucose monitor tells you what your glucose is. Insulin pump is connected to it, like an
Fixes-
AirPod. iPhone
Remember.
connected to AirPod. AirPod gives you the right amount of insulin. That's how it's supposed to work.
Got it.
But what if I told you that Dexcom, this $30 billion company, has been selling a glucose monitor that is giving people inaccurate readings of their glucose levels?
So that
Could
they
you
need
explain to
buy
me-
more insulin? Like, what's the?
Oh, that's a funny conspiracy.
Why would they do that? That's crazy, though.
Well, no, maybe
Like,
it just doesn't work. But you can understand that would be like quite bad, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
Do you want to
That's-
explain why it could be bad based on what you've learned so far about diabetes?
You might eat too many orange slices if you think that your number is too low. No, but you might inject yourself with the wrong amount of insulin if it's not telling you the right number.
That's exactly right. You might inject yourself with the wrong amount of insulin. And that is a very, very bad thing if you have diabetes. You could end up in the hospital. You could end up in a coma. You could die.
Yeah, I thought death was what happens to you with diabetes.
It's one of the things that can happen.
Goes wrong.
And this is a story about how this company that was actually a savior for many diabetics, it made their lives much more manageable. It sold the G5, which was amazing, and the G6, which helps a lot
Did
of
it
people.
stop working?
It started selling this device called the G7 a few years ago. And what we're about to tell you about is how this company, desperate, trying to meet its very, very ambitious growth targets, ended up selling a device that was not nearly as good as its past devices. And as a result, was telling people that their glucose readings were numbers that they actually were not. People across the country have been hospitalized,
Has anyone
killed. Yes. And basically, nobody knows about this. And that's the story that we're going to talk to you about
I'm
today.
so lucky you're my friend. This is amazing. Like
This is not amazing. This is tragic.
I'm sorry. No, it's like it's really bad, but this is I love hearing these like breaking stories before anyone gets to hear them.
I guess that is the upside of this tragedy is that Caroline gets to hear the breaking story
Tell me again.
before
Let me get a new
everybody else.
reaction. No, let me be like, no, it's really
No,
really
I think
bad,
that's the
really
perfect reaction. Okay, from there, we're going to bring on the great Laura Wadsten, Hunterbrook media reporter, healthcare expert, who's going to explain what actually happened to the Dexcom G7
such
to two
important
people who
work.
don't really understand it.
Yes, and we can ask her where the patches go.
We can absolutely do that.
This is such important work.
We have with us Laura Wadsten, healthcare reporter at Hunterbrook Media, who has been doing a lot of the heroic, intrepid reporting into this story. Laura, can you explain for Caroline at a very high level how diabetes actually works and the role that CGMs are supposed to play in managing it?
Please.
Yeah. So hi, Caroline.
Hi.
It's great to meet you.
It's great to meet you, too.
Diabetes is a condition where the pancreas, which is an organ in your torso, it excretes insulin, which is how a chemical your body uses to turn glucose into energy.
Oh, okay.
And in diabetes, the pancreas doesn't work. There's two different types. Type 1 is where there's no natural insulin production. Type 2 is usually where your pancreas can do it, but then
you're
it
too
stops
fat.
at some point.
No, that's not why, Caroline.
Oh, sorry.
But yes, there's obviously
I
a
swear I
component
thought
of it
type
having to
2
do with.
correlates with obesity.
Is that correct?
It can be. It's related, not always caused by obesity, but there is a link.
A correlation, one might say.
Yeah, and it can certainly be a contributing factor because they're both metabolic conditions, like your metabolism.
Sorry, but where is the pancreas in the torso? Like, what are the neighboring organs? Is it?
I am not a doctor.
Never mind.
It's like
I'm here to learn, and sometimes I'm asking too many questions. Next question:
okay.
Where does the So if
Wait, Caroline.
Yeah.
I'm taking the wheel again on
go.
account of the fact that Laura is not a doctor. And what I will ask Laura is, what is the role that CGMs play in the management of diabetes?
CGMs, which are continuous glucose monitors, help people with diabetes track and monitor their blood sugar throughout the day. Because since, the pancreas makes the insulin, when you don't have enough insulin, your blood sugar can get really high because
you're not converting the sugar into energy.
Exactly. So it builds up in your blood. And
that's why the blood sugar gets high. Yes, I'm so with you.
Okay. Yeah. So it builds up. When it's high, you're not also getting the right energy. There's all kinds of bad stuff. These continuous glucose monitors measure how much glucose is in your body, particularly the interstitial fluid, which is a little different than your blood. It's like the layer just under your skin. And so it sits in there and is constantly monitoring the amount of glucose in that layer.
It's actually an incredible product and super important, and has made millions of people's lives much easier over the years, because before the advent of CGMs, they had to do these finger pricks, which was bloody and difficult and time intensive. And so this was a huge step forward for people with diabetes. And Dexcom was this big leader in the space. And then they released the G7. And Laura, do you want to explain a little bit about the hype around the G7, and then how we began to figure out that the story Dexcom was telling about this device might not match up exactly with reality?
Yeah. So I guess for some hype, Caroline, do you familiar with the best Jonas brother, Nick?
I'm familiar with all three.
Oh,
Nick is the best, consensus best Jonas brother, except for the fact that Joe's song in Camp Rock, "This Is Real, This Is Me, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," and his harmonization with Demi Lovato was deeply formative for me.
Listen, I disagree with both of you. I'm a fan of the underdog. I like the third unknown one, like
Kevin?
Charles. Yeah, Kevin.
Or
whatever.
Frankie.
Well, no, Frankie's the bonus Jonas, but Kevin is
Kevin,
the consensus worst Jonas brother.
I like to call him Charles.
Yeah, Kevin, who Caroline calls Charles. But yes, Laura, we're familiar with Nick Jonas.
Yes. So, Nick Jonas has type 1 diabetes, and he is a Dexcom warrior, which are basically the sort of influencers or spokespeople for the Dexcom brand.
Is Lila Moss one? Because she wore a CGM to the Met Gala.
I would have to dig into that.
Laura, I also didn't know who Lila Moss was.
On different sides
the fun
of the
thing
internet.
about this podcast is that we get to explain things to each other. So after this, we're definitely going to do a deep dive on Lila Moss. But Nick Jonas not only was a sponsor of Dexcom, he was in a Super Bowl ad when the G7 launched.
Whoa.
Yeah.
We're going to play a quick clip of that Super Bowl ad. Laura, do you want to explain what happened to that ad? Like, could we just pull it up on YouTube or what?
People with diabetes are still pricking their fingers? What?
Dexcom took it down. In that ad, they partly claimed, this is the most accurate CGM ever. You saw Nick throw it up in the air and catch it and show just how small it is, because the G7 was 60% smaller than the previous generation Dexcom CGM.
And he kept saying this thing that Dexcom always says, which that it's the most accurate CGM in the world. The problem, Caroline, and perhaps the reason that ad was deleted, is that the G7 has serious issues, and Dexcom knows this. And they knew it in 2024 when that ad disappeared from their channel. Laura, do you want to talk a little bit about what we found out about the G7 and the FDA and its inspections of Dexcom's facilities?
Yeah. So I think we found this story because we saw a bunch of user complaints online with really scary reports of what problems with the G7 were causing people. So we started looking into it a bit deeper. In March of this year, the FDA sent Dexcom a warning letter. And warning letters are posted like online. You can find this and read it. And basically they cited Dexcom for a bunch of violations of the FDA's requirements on manufacturing, design. And, you know, one of the things they said was that they said you are selling an adulterated product, because Dexcom, per this warning letter, and then as we uncovered in our FDA inspection records that we obtained, Dexcom made a change to a critical part of the sensor. The FDA requires you, for devices, you have to submit a notification to the FDA before you're going to make a big change, right? Because they got to make sure
it's the same thing.
When the FDA caught them for making this change, they shared data from their own internal studies with the FDA that showed this new material performed worse by every accuracy metric.
So to be clear, Caroline, just so you're processing this, the FDA shows up at Dexcom's facility one day in 2024. We got these documents because we sent a Freedom of Information Act request to the FDA. And the FDA shows up. We also spoke to the guy the FDA wrote its inspection report to and its warning letter to, a guy named Ed Carr, who was there that day. And the FDA shows up and they're like, we're just going to come check out the G7, which we expect is going to be like the same as the G6, because you didn't tell us there was going to be this like big difference. And they come and they see that they changed a critical component. And the FDA is like, wait a second, can you tell us why you made this change? Do you have any internal studies showing you could change this component?
Because they're trying to make it smaller, 60% smaller.
They're trying to make it smaller. They're trying to release a new one. It's like the iPhone. They have to build hype,
thinner,
maintain hype.
lighter.
And at the same time, they're competing with this
better.
giant, this other company called Abbott. And Abbott's got its own device that's super sexy, super new, not sponsored by Nick Jonas, but cool nonetheless. And what the FDA finds is that Dexcom did do studies to see if this new part of the CGM would be equivalent. And the studies showed that it wasn't. None of the primary endpoints, which is like science speak for goals of the study, were met. And so Dexcom was selling people a device that it knew wasn't as good. And Laura, do you want to talk through a little bit what the consequences of this have been?
Yeah. And I'll just note too that without getting into as much detail about some of the other things, because this was kind of the violation that stuck out to us, there were a bunch of other violations identified by the FDA. And there were some other changes that Dexcom made to its latest product that could be factors in also some of these other issues. Like we know that they have a different algorithm now. And like you said, it's a lot smaller. So there's all kinds of stuff that goes in there. But yeah, some of the issues that we've heard, we've spoken to, I couldn't even.
Dozens and dozens of patients.
Yeah. Users who, of all ages, who have had really, really scary close calls with the sensor either dying when it's not supposed to, reading people as too high, and then giving them a dose of insulin, which pushes their blood sugar down. But if they weren't actually
if they were
high,
too low,
so
it pushes it too low. I have a couple of questions. So is the insulin stored in the CGM, or is that a separate device?
That is a great question. CGMs, the Dexcom and Abbott, the main competitor, their CGMs are a special type called integrated continuous glucose monitors, or iCGMs, which means they can be paired and communicate directly with an insulin pump that will automatically dose your insulin.
And so where does the CGM goes on your arm, where does the insulin pump go?
Oh, it can depend on the pump, but a lot of people wear them on their arm or on their abdomen. But they are two separate devices.
It's two separate devices on the arm, or one on arm, one on abdomen.
It's sort of up to people.
Or on leg.
And it can depend on the device. But yeah, there's separate things. So the insulin's in the pump.
Got it.
But the CGM is basically telling that pump, like, oh,
Yes.
your blood sugar's high. Let me give you a dose of insulin to bring you back into the normal range.
And to give
So,
you a
like,
little
if-
bit of a sense, Caroline, of the consequences of this,
It's death, right?
we spoke
the consequence is death.
It can be. We spoke to a guy named Bob Hawkinson who, remembers growing up with these boiled and hand-sharpened needles that his mom used to use to give him insulin. And for him, the CGM was this amazing, amazing new technology around the turn of the century that made his life much better. Except that the G7 did not work nearly as well as the past devices. And what happened to Bob Hawkinson is that one day he was driving to work wearing a G7, and what he said was, the next thing I know, I'm waking up with people trying to shove grape juice down my throat. He had to be revived because his G7 didn't alert him to the dangerously low blood sugar levels. CGMs were also important to someone we spoke to named Courtney Duffy, who said that they could help her avoid an awkward conversation on a date about how to handle the sight of blood. But one morning, she woke up in an ambulance to the sound of EMTs yelling, rushing to save her life when the G7 failed to alert her to a blood sugar crash. CGMs also made it easier for Diana Bates Knight to care for her diabetic 6-year-old daughter. But one night, a few months ago, the G7 misread her kid by hundreds of points, sending her to the emergency room with a life-threatening complication. And so that's the stakes for the people we could speak to.
The stakes
who
are death.
alive.
It's literally life or death.
Yes, and there's someone who tragically died named Billy Harold Sosby. We found out about this because his sister went to Facebook to share his story, hoping it would prevent other deaths. She and her brother are actually both diabetic. And she said that they were very excited when the G7 came out. She said that they sold the product as if it were a diabetic dream. And then one day, Billy's G7 readings said that everything was normal. And then just out of nowhere, he died. She said the device was not giving correct numbers, and he was dialing up insulin according to what the numbers were showing that are not correct. And now he's gone.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a nightmare. Laura, I have a question. Okay, so is the CGM, it's reading the numbers both, it's like 3 ways to read it wrong, as I'm hearing. It's like, it says it's too low when it's not that low, so they inject the insulin and it's too much. Then there's one problem where it says it's normal, but it's not normal and they don't do anything. And there's one where it says it's like, or actually there are 2 problems. It either doesn't give them the insulin or it gives them
Or it says
too
it's
much.
Yes.
Okay,
exactly right.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm so with you.
And so the crazy
So
thing
it's misreading it in all directions. It's not like it's chronically low or chronically high. It's just literally can't read.
Right. And for years, the way
Yeah.
people would operate with their CGMs is they would use finger pricks to calibrate to make sure, okay, the CGM's accurate. All of Dexcom's branding, like that Super Bowl
like,
ad,
get rid of
says
it.
like, no more finger sticks. And then in little tiny font at the bottom, it's like, yo, but you might need a finger stick sometime. Like not no finger sticks, just like only a couple finger sticks. But if you're just a human being using this thing and consuming the ads and listening to Nick Jonas, who did not respond to Hunterbrook's request for comment, tell you that you should get a
We should ask
CGM.
Charles.
Yeah, I'm sure we could get Kevin to rat on Nick about selling this death device. But the reality is that if you take this device and put it on your arm, it's totally reasonable that you could think it would take care of this for you. And we spoke to endocrinologists around the country who
What's
have said,
an endocrinologist?
Laura?
Yeah, endocrinologists, I mean, they work with the endocrine system,
Well, what
which
is
includes
that?
the pancreas. So they sort of specialize
Chrono
in
is time.
that like metabolic.
What is endo?
Wow, Caroline just
Gosh,
wanted to flex
inside.
the root knowledge.
No, I want to gain more root knowledge. I want all of the knowledge.
Yeah, endo, like
has-
endogenous versus exogenous. It's like within the...
Within time. Surely
yeah.
I'm misreading it. Like, what is it? What do they do? What do they study? What is
They work with,
endocrinology?
like hormones, and specifically, a lot of times they end up doing stuff with metabolism. But
They're
hormones,
doctors who work with hormones.
That are endocrinologists.
Correct.
Love it. I love learning new words. Thank you. Why are you laughing? I'm dead serious.
No, it's true. Caroline, whose book was called A Masterpiece by the Washington Post, and whose book was reviewed favorably by the New Yorker, particularly
They
in
said it was
comparison.
funny, engaging, and full of genuine insight. Not like I memorized it or anything.
Genuine insight. Just learn the word endocrinologist.
In
Anyway,
real
we spoke
time.
to a bunch of endocrinologists who told us that they've stopped prescribing the G7 to to patients, because they just are very worried that it's not going to be safe.
Yeah.
And the wild thing about all of this is that throughout the process, despite patients complaining, the Facebook group grew from 3,000 people to 58,000 people who were in there complaining and telling their stories. The company, Laura, do you want to describe the company's response to all this?
Yeah. So, I mean, literally yesterday at an investor conference, a Dexcom representative was asked, we've been hearing a little bit of chatter about some of these issues. Do you expect that that's, something we need to worry about for the upcoming, the foreseeable future? And they were like, by no means. These are just minor issues. It comes up every once in a while, and it's nothing to worry about. And that's been sort of the repeated trend of how Dexcom has responded when asked in interviews and other public forums about this warning letter and the other issues.
And one of the things that the CEO said, the new CEO of Dexcom, when asked about this, he said, things happen. Which is like such a bad excuse. Like, that's like a good excuse for Caroline showing up 30 minutes late today.
Yes. For what it's worth, my pay will be docked. So
I don't know why Caroline thinks we're garnishing wages at Hunterbrook.
You have to. No, because things don't happen in 30 minutes is not acceptable. Things happen is like one baby step above him saying just shit happens.
Totally. And so let me tell you, Dexcom, I believe, is in a very tough spot. And I think that's why they haven't fully acknowledged these concerns. We found that 9 different top executives at Dexcom have quit in the last year. We found this out not because the company disclosed all these departures, but because people's LinkedIn's changed. The leadership pages of these companies' websites changed. Yeah, got to look at that stuff.
Yeah.
And we also know that according to the forensic accountant who works with Hunterbrook, Dexcom's been very aggressive with its numbers, recognizing revenue it's not going to get for several quarters in the present quarters, doing whatever it can to paint a narrative of everything being okay, when it seems like the company might know that things are not okay. And this is not just a problem for the shareholders of Dexcom's stock, which is, its own complicated calculus. It's a problem for patients who haven't gotten clarity and don't have any idea whether the product they're using that their life depends on is safe. And so, Laura, I want to wrap up by asking you, what might happen to Dexcom here? How will there be any form of accountability?
Oh gosh, investigative reporters love to hypothesize and predict.
Totally.
But they had received that FDA warning letter. I think it's going to have to be something internal from Dexcom, though, because for what it's worth, I think people, and Caroline, you might be surprised, I was when I first learned about how the FDA regulates devices. There's not a lot of teeth. There's not a lot of staff in their device center. They do have some mechanisms for going after companies when they break rules or cause problems, but Dexcom didn't issue a recall of this device.
No, you're joking.
The FDA didn't make them.
I swear to God, I thought we were going towards recall.
No, so here's where we're at, Caroline. People don't realize that there's this huge problem with this device. There was that FDA warning letter.
Wait, and just for the timing, so the FDA letter came before the Nick Jonas Super Bowl.
No, incorrect. Okay, here's what happened.
Okay.
Nick Jonas releases the device with the Super Bowl ad. He goes like, psh, Dexcom. And then...
Let's cut that into the actual ad.
And February 2023.
February
2023.
2023.
Okay.
2024, they're in the facility in Mesa, and they're like just doing their job, doing their Dexcom job. Boom, FDA officers are in the facility. FDA officers are like, what the hell are we seeing here? Then the FDA officials start exchanging letters. They're in an epistolary relationship with Dexcom. And then Dexcom sends them the studies, and the FDA realizes, oh shit, your own studies say that this is not nearly as good. And so then eventually the FDA sends a warning letter to Dexcom, and Dexcom's like, all right, we're just going to make this the old way. And Dexcom says it's reverted. Meanwhile, customers are still saying that the G7 is inaccurate. They're still reporting concerns.
Unless
it's
they
unclear that
increase
the FDA
size,
is
they can't
intervening.
revert, right?
I have no idea how important the size of the device is.
Well, I mean, mean, decreasing the size by 60% sounds kind of huge.
Honestly, Laura, we haven't dug into this particular component in our reporting. Maybe we need to look it up. It is true that if you have less space to put things in, maybe some of the important things aren't in there.
Not the first thing you guys were thinking about.
Caroline, the newest member of the Hunterbrook investigative team.
Proprietary.
Right, you don't actually know exactly the changes that they made.
It's common sense. You take away, if someone took away 60% of my iPhone, I wouldn't expect it to work as well. Jesus Christ, guys.
It's honestly a good take. But where this
I call this flower my thinking cap.
Totally. But where this is that there's law firms that are investigating whether Dexcom is liable for the hospitalizations and the deaths.
Investigating? Surely that's cut and dry.
We're publishing this investigation that you can read on hunterbrook.com, HNTRBRK.com. And what needs to happen for there to be some kind of change is people need to keep speaking up, and Dexcom needs to acknowledge this problem and listen. And that's a big part of the reason that we started this new podcast at Hunterbrook The Hunt, because our stories have led to all kinds of change, from federal investigations to AGs charging companies. But this one in particular is really going to come down to whether people speak up, whether people call Nick Jonas, tell him that he should stop supporting a company like this, whether there's enough of a groundswell of attention to force the company to change at a time when a lot of the federal government is not doing its job in regulating the industries it's supposed to oversee.
Yeah.
And the stakes are life or death.
They are.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Everyone, I would say, I think every single user that we've interviewed has been very grateful and, talked to us and been like, thank you so much for looking into this. We really hope that you guys reporting on it gets Dexcom to answer. One endocrinologist described that Dexcom, it feels like they're gaslighting the doctors, which is a crazy thing to do. So
Dexcom is gaslighting, gatekeeping, and not girl bossing now.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's exactly right.
Ones.
And if you don't listen to this podcast and speak up, they might not fix this problem by the year 3000, which is an important year for Nick Jonas. You must not really be a Jonas Brothers fan. Okay, with that, I will wrap up.
I thought one was named Charles.
So next episode, we're going to explain.
But I'm like, Lila Moss, call me.
Yeah, we're going to taxonomize the Jonas Brothers next episode. But really grateful to everyone for listening. Laura, very grateful that you have taken the time to explain diabetes to us despite not being a doctor, and to share some of the reporting that you and Andrew Ford and Michelle Serra and Blake Spendley and the rest of the team did to uncover a story that this company really didn't want people to find out. And Caroline Calloway, thank you very much for helping us uncover this and giving us our next reporting assignment, which is to look into the size of the G7. How can you be so small and still do so much?
And listen, I'm just going to put a pin in this. Let's also look into orange slices.
Yeah, Caroline also seems to think that orange slices are maybe the cure to diabetes, but we can definitely come back to that on a future
I can't wait for the next episode.
This is so fun. All right. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Laura. And thank you, Mike, who has made all these logistics happen and has let us stay in the studio an extra few minutes because Caroline didn't fucking show up on time. Kidding. All right. Much love. Goodbye.